Hey guys, welcome to my first Q&A. Let's dive right in. Megan Charlier asks,
if you could bring one musician back from the dead to do a one-time only collaboration album with, who would you choose?
that's a very good question. There's been so many musical heroes and inspirations that have died over the past couple of years. I would have to say Chris Cornell, because his voice. Justin Ray.
Apparently we've been friends for 10 years now, at least in Facebook land. Maybe you could share your opinion on musical masturbation, i.e. anyone who takes a solo and can't stop themselves from using phrases and notes that are just too much.
I feel your pain. If you're doing a theatre gig or a panto gig or a cabaret gig or a pub gig or a club gig or any kind of gig that you're not the centre of attention, you're not the focus, then there's no real space for that. People are paying to see a show, they're not paying to see you wank. If you start a band where you're writing for the sake of long, complicated guitar solos, piano solos, keyboard solos, not bass solos, that's completely fine. I have no issue with that. I have an issue when you're supporting someone, you're supporting a singer or you're supporting a songwriter or you're in a show where you've got 8 bars or 16 bars to play a solo. Play something that serves the song. My first video that I put up on YouTube was about this exact issue, so I'll link to it somewhere. It'll be up there or down there or that way. Frank Cuddembey writes,
How are you? That is my question. It's been a while.
Hey Frank, how are you doing? Jeez, I haven't seen you for years and years and years. For those of you who don't know who Frank is, he is a phenomenal keyboard player, great vocalist, and he used to host a karaoke evening at Dizzy's in Camps Bay. Just when I was in my early 20s, I think I must have been about 21 or 22. I met him there when I decided to go for drinks after the show we were doing at Theatre on the Bay. I can't remember which one it was. It must have been 60 something or Station 70. Anyway, I met him there, into the karaoke competition, and I subsequently won. Yeah, because karaoke. We struck up a conversation afterwards, and he got me a gig there. I ended up playing there on and off for about 5 or 6 years after that. It was cool. It was very cool. Good to hear from you, Frank. Marc Rontsch asks,
Can I lick your head? And if I can, will it squeak?
no, you can't lick my head. Let's say hypothetically, you could lick my head. The moisture from your tongue would negate any friction between your tongue and my head, causing it not to squeak. Let's try an experiment. Okay, no squeaking. But let's say my head was completely dry, and it's not right now because first of all I just wet it with saliva, and I do moisturize my head. But let's say my head was dry and your tongue was dry, which I would find a bit alarming because natural saliva glands in the mouth and everything would keep your tongue moist. Let's say that your tongue was dry and my head was dry. It probably would squeak. Raven Conacher.
Hey Jason, I found you through the YouTube. I'm a big fan. I'm thinking about leaving my job to do session work. Just wanted to get a realistic earning potential. I know it also depends on the amount of work you do. Thanks in advance.
First of all, thank you, Raven. That's very kind of you. That's a bit of a tricky question, though. It really would depend on how connected you are in the industry already. Leaving your job is dangerous. To do anything musical, it's dangerous. Unless you have a full-time job in music, then you wouldn't want to leave your job to do music. I don't really know how big the market is for session musicians anymore, because only people are just relying on samples and loops and things like that. Sorry man, I know this doesn't really answer your question. There are guys that are doing it for a living at the moment, and even they'll tell you that they'll have months where they're sitting flush and they can afford to live and afford to pay rent and go on holidays and buy new things, and they'll have months where they're doing nothing. These are guys that have been in the session music industry for 20 plus years. Unless you've already got a lot of connections and the guys that are offering you work already, don't quit your job yet. First get to that point where people are demanding your services and then go for it. David Ackermann.
I have a question. Do you remember one of the first original songs you performed called Blue Green Pumpkin Pie? I remember the song like I heard it yesterday. Would you not consider perhaps doing an ode to the song by performing it in 2017 Guile style?
Hey David, how you doing? First of all, that song was written and sung by our bass player at the time, Ryan Matthews. It was a a bit of an anti-drug song. I think we must have been about 12 or 13 when we first played that song live. I wish I had a video of it somewhere. If anyone does have any footage of that song, please send me the footage. I'd love to see it. But anyway, yeah, I would be open to it. Ryan, if you're watching this, give me a call. We can record the song and make a video and put it on my channel, and it'll be fun. Marshall Harmse.
Just a quick short question. Biorhythms and how they affect your playing. Does your talent surpass effects of negative down spirals, and how is it totally unrelated to your mood? How does someone as good as Steve Lukather and Dan Huff, that on their worst off night are still so much more superior to us mere mortals and not get affected by biorhythms? Are their abilities and talents above being dragged down by biorhythms? After a disastrous night in the office, we are by now wallowing in shame, self-doubt, and about to give up playing guitar because embarrassingly you just don't feel the groove anymore. You pitch up at the gig, depressed as shit, thinking the band is about to fire you, and how you could rescue your honor by maybe resigning first. And what the fuck? In the midst of your depression and lowest musical point, you play like a demon. So bad that Joe Satriani will kiss your hands, Eddie Van Halen will have a bottle of Jack Daniels on you, and Hendrix would smile quietly down from heaven. So hereby the conclusion. Depression or happiness has nothing to do with how you play, but subconsciously biorhythms can affect the way you play until such time you become aware of the way it affects you and have learned to deal with such. Dear Jason, if you could answer some of the issues surrounding maintaining self-confidence, self-belief, and mostly surviving after an inexplicable career-ending performance and subsequent comeback after that, there must be a mental strategy to ward against the evils of self-pity and anger towards the musical gods.
Okay, first off, let's talk about biorhythms. For those of you who don't know what biorhythms are, I'll read you the Wikipedia extract.
According to the theory of biorhythms, a person's life is influenced by rhythmic biological changes that affect his or her ability in various domains, such as mental, physical, emotional activity. These cycles begin at birth and oscillate in a steady sine wave fashion throughout life. And by modeling them mathematically, it is suggested that a person's level of ability in each of these domains can be predicted from day to day. The theory is built on the idea that the biofeedback chemical and hormonal secretion functions within the body which show a sinusoidal behavior over time.
Okay. Biorhythms. A pseudoscience, much like astrology. What it's basically saying is that you can predict your moods and your you can predict your moods and your brain functions and all that. I don't think I don't think that's right at all. What would basically happen then is that your moods would run in a loop. So you'd start off the month happy, and then maybe a few days later you'd become sad, and then angry, and then ecstatic, and then depressed, and it would just keep going and going and going. Food definitely affects your mood. What happens to you during the day? If your dog gets run over, you'd be sad. It doesn't matter what your biorhythm is. You know, it's I know Marshall, and I don't think he's being serious at all. But he does have some better questions here. Like, how does someone as good as Steve Lukather and Dan Huff on their worst off night are still so much more superior to us mere mortals? That's because they are. They are that much superior to us mere mortals. They are phenomenal players in every sense of the word. And after a disastrous night in the office, we are by now wallowing in shame, self-doubt, and about to give up playing guitar because embarrassing, you just don't feel the groove anymore. You pitch up at the gig depressed as shit, thinking the band is about to fire you and how you could rescue your honor by resigning first. And what the fuck? In the midst of your depression and lowest musical point, you play like a demon. That's not biorhythms. That's just playing from pure raw emotion. And if you're not overthinking the technicality point of view, you're playing from the heart, and that's the most important thing. Regarding the issues of self-confidence and self-belief, first of all, one off night doesn't define you as a musician. We all have our off nights. It's called being human. We make mistakes. Sometimes it doesn't matter how well you know the material you're playing. You might not be completely in it at that particular moment, and you'll forget. It happens, but you know, you're saying here about self-confidence and self-belief and all that. I've had gigs where I know I've played like shit. I've probably fluffed 90% of the guitar solos, forgotten chords, forgotten lyrics. It's been a complete mess. And I've walked away from the gig feeling terrible. But then, I'll have at least 3 or 4 people after the show come up to me and say, wow, that was amazing. I really loved what you did. I love your playing. I love your voice. I think that's probably the best way to get over that. Because no matter how bad you think you were, there are people out there that think you're great. So that's got to give you some sort of sense of self-confidence, I suppose. There must be a mental strategy to ward against the evils of self-pity and anger towards the musical gods. I don't think there is. Unless you could take a pill that would make sure that you played exactly the same every night. But that would be boring. If you don't have your off days, then you don't have your great days. Okay, Justin Ray has another question.
How do you memorize songs, specifically lyrics?
with great difficulty. I'm terrible at remembering lyrics. I'm terrible at remembering anything written down. Even with my YouTube videos, I'll read the line. I'll read what I've written to say. I'll read my script. And as soon as I face the camera to say it, I've forgotten. And I've got to do it a couple of times. That's why I'm trying to do this Q&A thing off the cuff. Anyway, lyrics I will start memorizing way before I start learning the chords. Because I know that even come showtime, I'm not going to be confident. And probably, if it's a new song, if I haven't sung the song before, only about 2 or 3 weeks into the run, I can go up there and sing the song without having to think about it. Chords and things like that, I don't really have an issue with. I've got really good relative pitch and I can retain melody really well. So I can listen to the song once or twice, especially if it's a 4-chord number or a pop song or thing, and I won't have any issues getting that to stick. Hey Justin, sorry, I realized while I was editing this that I didn't actually answer your question. The answer is repetition, 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 repetition. Listen to the songs over and over and over again. That's the only way. Okay, last questions from Jared. Go check out his channel. It's here somewhere here. Jared Gunston TV.
How about a quick gear rundown? Amp models on pedals, big into EQ, etc. Stereo, mono. Always curious to see how guys like it.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, ask and you shall receive. I use Boss and Roland products, and I've been an endorsee since 2014. But even if I wasn't an endorsee, I'd still be using them, considering that I've been using their products since I turned pro in 1999. I started with the ME30 and upgraded to the GT6 and then the GT8 and the GT10. And now I'm currently using the GT100 into the Roland GA112 amp. I'll quickly go through some of my sounds that I'm using for the show currently, which is a 90s show called 90s Mania at the Crestabania Theatre, so be sure to come watch. We're there till the end of the year. So without any further ado, this is my clean sound. I'll quickly go through what I've got on this patch. So for my amp sim, I'm using the JC120 because in my opinion there's not really much else that's better for cleans. And then I've got a little bit of compression. Chorus, which is in mono. You asked about the stereo versus mono thing. I run all my patches in mono. And okay, then I've got my phrase loop pedal set to my first control pedal, which I've got a big sweeping phaser. My second one, I've got a tremolo with a little bit of overdrive, which I use for the Alanis Morissette song, You Ought to Know. Okay, second I've got my crunchy patch. So for an anthem, I'm using the Combo Crunch. You also asked about EQing. I don't really do much EQing on the pedal itself. It's generally done on my amp, which is pretty straightforward. I got my mids at about 3/4, I got my bass at about 2, and my treble at about 1, and then presence at about 3. So what I've got here is my tap tempo and my phrase loop. And then when I push up on the expression pedal, gives me a bit of a solo mid-range boost and delay. And then my second control pedal, I'm adding an overdrive, so I'm adding a 2 screamer just to give it a bit more bite. I think it sounds fantastic. Okay, now my third patch. This is a heavy distortion patch. I'm using the high gain stack preamp. And I have a natural overdrive in front just to tighten it up a bit. You'll see here it's got distortion octave down. So if I push my phrase loop, it'll add an octave down to the sound. Which really beefs up things. And then same vibe here, tap tempo. When I push the expression pedal up, it puts on some chorus, it puts on a pitch shifter which just doubles the sound a little bit, and some delay. Dramatic volume difference. That really gives me a nice volume boost for solos and things, because you can't always rely on your engineer. And when you have got a good engineer, then it makes his life easier. Okay, next patch is basically a duplicate of that, except it's got an octave up. Instead of my octave below, we got my octave up. I think it's for the Roxette stuff. For the wah-wah sounds, I am using, what am I using? I'm using 7-string wah. I love this wah. It's got such a deep frequency range. This is my crunch patch, except I've got a pitch shifter dropping the whole thing a semitone down. So instead of tuning your guitar down and or having a separate guitar just to play 1 or 2 songs on, I've got a patch that does it for me. And this particular patch I'm using for Black Hole Sun. Next up I've got my heavy distortion sound, but also a semitone down for the chorus of Black Hole Sun. I've got my crunchy tone pitched up a tone, which I use for One of Us. It saves the mission of putting on a capo. You know, when you put a capo, sometimes your guitar is not perfectly in tune, and then you got to spend time retuning, and with these Floyd bridges, it's always a bit of a nightmare. And you don't normally have much time between songs to do all that. This definitely saves a lot of time, and it's fooled many people. Anyway guys, thanks for all the questions and thanks for watching. I'm going to be doing these Q&As maybe once a month, so if you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below or hit up my Facebook page or my Twitter and ask me questions there. And don't forget to subscribe, like and share. I'll see you next time. Bye!